Joining us tonight on the Political Roundtable, great to have back with us Gary Schuster, former White House correspondent for CBS News and the Detroit News, as we do our first debate post-game recap of the GOP. They had two today. They had the earlier 5 o'clock one on Fox, and then they just completed the 9 o'clock one, both in Cleveland tonight. And Gary joined us on the telephone. And Gary, a busy night for politics, even though we're a year and a few months out, but it was kind of interesting, wasn't it?
It was interesting. It's sort of good to be back in the middle of all this, Doug, because, it is sort of what drives, daily life, whether you like it or not. And I thought, the representation on the stage tonight in both debates was pretty good. I thought they all handled themselves pretty well, even Donald Trump.
You've covered the White House and political campaigns before, going back to Jimmy Carter, of course, Ronald Reagan as well, but I don't ever remember this far out of an election having this many candidates for either party and having a debate this early. So this is all new territory, isn't it?
It is, really. I remember 1980 when I covered Reagan's first debate up in New Hampshire, the one in which he said, "I paid for this microphone."
Right.
There were, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 candidates at that time, and we all thought that was a lot. But this is, with the 10 plus the others on the earlier, you had, I think it was 17 people, I think, altogether, or something like that. It was incredible how many are out there. And in a way, I thought the answers, at least at the late debate, were not all that different from each other. There were some differences, but overall, I don't think that they varied all that much.
The JV debate, the one at 5 o'clock, had the seven, Bobby Jindal, Pataki, former governor of New York, Carly Fiorina, Lindsey Graham, Rick Santorum, Governor Rick Perry, and Gilmore, former governor of Virginia. And that was a little bit shorter, about an hour and 15 minutes on that one. And I thought it was interesting, but not nearly the fireworks that we saw in the 9 o'clock debate. And I thought both went off pretty well. My only criticism of Fox, and they're usually pretty good, I thought the questions took way too long. I thought particularly Megyn Kelly and Chris Wallace, ask the question, get out of the way. That was my only criticism there.
Well, the other criticism I had was, two. One, I think the candidates would have done better. The Republican candidates, where, the last several weeks, it's been pointed out, of course, and even after the Obama win 3 years ago, that the minorities who really sort of drove the election results, I don't know that they even watch Fox News, one. And so, two, they should have picked, perhaps, or maybe they will. I don't know who else is covering the other debates, but what networks? Well, I don't know if it's all going to be Fox. I don't know that, but I think they should have had. If they're trying to get votes, they should have been someplace else other than on the stage of Fox News that has the reputation. Two, I thought the questions, like you, were one, too long, but two pointed to the issues that Fox didn't like, and then they would set these candidates up by saying, President Obama says this, and this, and this. What would you do if you were president? And whatever the question was things that Fox News doesn't like.
Yeah, I thought they were leading questions. I think that you're better served. Just ask your opinion on the Iran deal, your opinion on gay marriage and all that, and get out of the way. I thought they were way too long, and all the news people do it on these debates. But I was a little surprised Fox went that way, and I thought Megyn Kelly's and Chris Wallace went a little bit too long, but that's just a minor criticism. But and again, some of these candidates were standing around for about 20 minutes. They didn't have anything to say because they didn't get their turn for about 10 or 15 minutes after they answered the previous question.
Exactly. So, when you have a field of 10, it's sort of like herding cats,
Yeah, right.
But I think they did, I think probably they did the best they could. There were people who got short shirted, but like Ben Carson, they had short shrift and didn't get all the stuff in. But I thought for Ben Carson, he was the most thoughtful of all the candidates. He doesn't have a chance. He doesn't have a chance of winning, but he was the most thoughtful of all the candidates.
I saw an interview with him last night. Also, I believe it was on. O'Reilly interviewed him, and he asked him, you have some lines ready, and Dr. Carson said he did, and he got a few in at the end in that last closing segment there. So I thought he had some good lines tonight. I thought Donald Trump came out with a great line at the beginning about Rosie O'Donnell. I thought he deflated Megyn Kelly's question, which again I thought was an unfair question to ask Trump about comments on women, but I think Trump did a good job of hammering that down and got a good laugh out of it.
No, I thought he did. There were a few good lines. Huckabee had a couple during the evening that were pretty good. The one about we're concerned with somebody who has been involved with scandal and never governed. And sort of everybody thought he was talking about Trump. And I mentioned Hillary Clinton. It was Hillary Clinton he was talking about.
That's right.
But there were some good there were some pretty good lines across the stage. Christie had a couple. I thought he held himself pretty well. Nobody attacked on the bridge issue, closing the bridge up there in New Jersey, and some other things. But I just thought the 10 that were on that stage that included 5 either sitting or former governors, 3 senators, and Trump and Dr. Carson, the neurosurgeon. That was the group. So you have a lot of governors, which I think is indicative of sort of where the leadership in this country is going and is coming from. It's the states, and they talked about that tonight. Actually, how come he said the biggest threat to the country is the federal government? He said, "When I was governor, our biggest roadblock was the federal government."
Yeah, I thought he made a good point there. I thought John Kasich did an outstanding job. He came in very late into the race, only a few weeks into it now, and people that watch Fox knew him from when he used to do a show there, but went back into politics and has done a good job in a very tough state for a Republican, Ohio. And I thought he had some good lines tonight. I particularly like the question at the end. I'll give Fox credit for the question about God, and I thought that was an interesting question. I think all the candidates handled that pretty well.
I thought they did, but let me tell you what I think. Because it was at the end, I think they were all told there was going to be a question on God, because they all seemed pretty well prepared.
Yeah, they had answers ready for it. I'm not sure how much they were briefed on the questions going in. I guess topics, I suppose. But I thought that was an interesting one. And Jeb Bush, a lot of people thought he might come off kind of stiff tonight. I thought he was trying to look a little more relaxed up there and a little bit against his style. We've seen him down here in Florida, Gary, as governor. I thought he was a good governor, and he always did well, but not the greatest public speaker in the world. But I think he made an effort tonight to try and look more relaxed. What did you think?
Well, I thought he looked relaxed, and I thought he was not caught off guard by the question about Planned Parenthood. He made that good while he was on Bloomberg's board, and they gave the Planned Parenthood. Where was he on that? And he said, I was there for education. I was there for Planned Parenthood. And my record on that issue is clear as governor. I thought he handled himself well on some of those points. I thought Trump, while a lot of people thought he would revert to mold, and be bombastic and sort of be almost out of control, he wasn't. I mean, you and I were when Trump spoke here in Sarasota a few weeks ago. He was sort of bombastic.
Right.
The audience was, it was like feeding the audience red meat, and he sort of went for it. And I thought, and he's done that in places across the country, but he has settled down mainly, and I'm not going to say he looked presidential, but he was better than I thought he would be, primarily, I think, because he had the highest number of votes or percentages. That's why he was in the middle of the stage, is because he was the leader in the polling they took as who was going to be on the stage and where they were going to stand.
Speaking of Trump, of course, you mentioned he led the polls coming in, pretty much doubling Jeb Bush, who's in second place. Let's do a little prognostication, Gary. Obviously, the Spinmeisters are doing their work now, and the polls, I'm sure, will come out tomorrow, at least a quick poll. Who do you think is going to emerge from the pack? I don't think Trump's going to lose a lot of ground, but who do you think is going to emerge out of this debate today?
Well, in knowing that we were going to talk, I put a little list together here. I thought who won the debate was Trump, just because he didn't do what I thought he was going to do, and I think other people thought so as well. Although he did have a few red meat lines and got audience participation in them. I thought he did well, and I think his numbers are probably going to go up some. I don't know if they're going to go up hugely, but they'll go up some. I think Rubio held his position pretty well. I thought he seemed serious, and he's a fellow who has been in the Senate for a while and has held himself in pretty good regard across the country, especially in the minority communities. And I thought Huckabee did well. As I told you earlier, I thought Ben Carson was the most thoughtful. The other ones were, I thought Kasich was fine, and he played to the audience because they were in Cleveland and Ohio. But and he used his father being a former mailman 2 or 3 times. I was surprised Ronald Reagan came up more times than I thought he would, having been out of office and out of life for quite some time.
Right.
Actually, I mean, elected at 80, and here it is 15. So 35 years ago, and they're still saying, I'm a Reagan Republican.
Yeah, I don't think anybody hurt themselves at all. I liked what Walker had to say. I thought he represented himself well. You mentioned Rubio. I thought he did a good job. And Huckabee, of course. And Cruz, I thought, was pretty thoughtful. So I don't think anybody hurt themselves at all. They're all going to benefit, I think. It's just a matter of how it shakes out in the top 3 or 4, because that really determines, I guess, the fundraising from here on out for anybody below 3 in the polls. That's the key, isn't it?
It is the key, Doug. And the thing is, you're not going to win it or lose it here tonight. None of them did. None of them said anything that they're going to be taking the task for, really. That it has any legs that's going to last very long. But that's the basic. That's the basic outcome. Is if you're in the top 3, the money's going to start coming in. And as each debate goes on, it's going to increase that likelihood all the more.
I thought the early debate, watching that, and it seems to be consensus that Carly Fiorina came out on top on that. I thought she did a very good job of, she answered the questions very eloquently. I thought everybody did pretty well. I thought Bobby Jindal did a good job there, and I think Governor George Pataki, who has been out of the limelight for quite a while, former governor of New York, did well as well. But I'm not so sure any of those are going to bump up into the top 10 out of what they said today. But I think Fiorina is going to get the biggest bump, at least as a potential vice presidential candidate.
I think that's probably right, Doug. Plus the fact that she is a woman. She's been through this a time before. She's business-wise, so she could sort of address things that some of the others can't. From running businesses and whether it's healthcare or other things that she's been directly involved in. It's like Trump said. I got companies. I have thousands of employees, and I have to deal with all these things all the time. And I just thought all of them represented themselves pretty well, given the fact that there were so many.
Well, we'll look forward to the next event. I believe the Democrats have scheduled a debate from what I saw today in October. I don't know any more details on that, but I'm sure the Republicans will have another one before the fall starts, or maybe in early fall. We'll talk about that as well. But Gary Schuster, always great to get your thoughts on it, and we'll be doing a lot of these as we make our way through the end of this year. Then, of course, with the primary starting early 2016, we'll have a lot to talk about.
Well, I look forward to it, Doug. I think it's fun. This will be a great stretch here for the debates and for us to talk about them.
For Gary Schuster, Doug Miles for Political Roundtable. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you again next time. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media. All rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or DougMilesMedia.com.